Hey everyone, welcome to a very special Cobra Kai interview. Today I'm here with Erin Bradley Dangar, who plays Counselor Blatt in Cobra Kai seasons 1 and 3. How are you doing today, Erin?
Doing great. Thank you, Drew. How are you?
I'm doing great. First off, I just want to thank you so much for coming here and doing this, taking the time. I'm very
Thanks for
excited to
having me.
talk. Yeah, of course, of course. I'm excited to talk about Cobra Kai. We were talking a little before. You were giving me some behind the scenes pictures. It was pretty cool. So I'm excited to talk about that and also to talk about Sun, which I just watched recently. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you're very excited too because just came out last Friday, right?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry that I guess I build it as a psychological thriller, but I think it does have some horror aspects to it. So you'll have to give us your take on that. Like who should be watching it and who should maybe, I don't know, watch it with someone not alone, for example. you know.
Yeah, I gotta admit I'm not good with horror movies, so I was a little scared watching it, but I got through it. I had to like hold the blanket up to my eyes a couple times, but it
Well,
was
don't
really
think.
fun. It was really fun, and I definitely want to talk to you about it. And then if you want, like the very end, I have like maybe like two spoiler questions about the movie.
Okay.
So, but we could save that for the end, like the very end. So for
Okay.
people who haven't watched it, they
That's a
can
good idea.
tune out. But we'll talk about it in general. So, before we get into that though,
Mhm.
um, today we're doing something really special. Erin chose today. Usually, what we do in the interviews is we choose charity to help out an organization, and Erin, you chose Lifeline Animal Project, which I thought was really cool. I have a dog and I love animals, so I thought this was an awesome one. So, do you want to talk about why you chose this one for today?
Sure. They're very near and dear to my heart because I adopted my dog from them. I think it was like 11 or 12 years ago. They've been around for 20 years as a shelter and a no-kill facility. But, and I'll get the numbers wrong, it was probably around a decade ago that they actually took over our, what do you call that? Like the pound, basically. We have two different counties here in Atlanta that are like our biggest counties in the city, DeKalb and Fulton, and they each had their own um, kill facilities, basically, and they've transformed them. They took over and made it where they're not euthanizing, they're getting fosters, they're making sure the animals go out to other smaller rescue groups who can then use their networks to try to find them homes. And I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but they have reduced the number of euthanizations by some really high percentage in the past decade. So they've been doing a great job with that. They're a great example for any other cities that are looking for ways to have this effect and protect animals that are, they might be sick, but they might be treatable. They don't necessarily need to be put down. And they're just a great example for anyone looking at how that can be done successfully. So I've been donating to them for years, and so thank you so much for doing this, because this is something really special to kind of widen that audience of people that might be willing to contribute and make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. And in the video that you sent me, like to promote this interview, you said you got your dog from, right? Their
Yeah.
adoption
Yeah.
center.
Let's see. Oh, he's not in here. Usually he's right next to me, but he's
Ah,
asleep on the bed in the other room right now. But yeah, I think I was going to Target one day, and the PetSmart next door was hosting a Lifeline adoption thing, and they had a few dogs out to meet, and I saw his little face and just fell in love. So that was it. I applied to adopt him, and then took about a week of, going to the shelter. And he had a sister at the time, or it might have been his mother, we don't know, but a dog he was bonded with that he seemed to be related to, and they wanted them to go together. So we adopted her as well.
oh,
And she
wow.
passed away. She was older.
Sorry.
But it was just a great experience, just working with them. And they're all so compassionate, and they make the process of adoption really easy. And they do a lot of they have a thing called Weekend Warriors, where you can go and just kind of pull a dog out for the weekend and take it with you when you go walk on the Beltline, or they wear a little vest that says "Adopt Me." So the whole time they're kind of advertising for a forever home. But it gets them out of that shelter environment, even if it's only for a couple days. It's nice for them to get that break and to socialize with people and maybe other animals. And then the volunteers get to report back how they did, and maybe they need to be in a home without cats, or with or without small children, that kind of thing. They get to know them a little better. So they're really creative. I love their programs.
Yeah, I've been to some like dog events. I took my dog there, and it's really cool what they do. And I think this foundation is great, and I'm happy that we're doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and just a little tease. I'm always trying to come up with fun ideas for videos and stuff. So I'll just say Doggy Kai. That's just that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say.
Cool. I'm gonna wait with bated breath for that.
I'll let you know. Definitely some sort of like funny thing. Maybe. I'm working on it. See if I could get my dog on board.
Oh, that's so cool. That would be really cute.
Yeah. Oh wow, we already got $76. That's great. We just started.
So cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
But yeah, thank you guys. And if you want to donate, there should be a big blue donate button either below the video or to the side of it. So you'll see it. And if you can donate, that would be great. Anything helps. And if you can't, I linked the website in the description below. So if you guys want to check them out, see what else you could do.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And just spreading the word is helpful. So thank you. Or if you know of a shelter in your area that might benefit from learning about some of the ways that Lifeline has been successful in our big metro area of Atlanta, maybe just pass that information along to them. Even that is a huge help, because then we're helping animals everywhere, not just in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's great. So going to Sun, can you, for those of you, for those here who didn't watch the movie, can you describe what it's about, and can you describe your character?
It's a tough one. It's if you like, I've been telling people, if you like the occult and psychological thrillers that have a story, a real plot and storyline to them, it's not just blood and guts for the sake of being a horror thing. There are some scenes of blood and guts, though, so do be forewarned. It's about a mother who has a son who falls ill, and she has this past that is connected with the occult. And I don't want to give too much away about that, but she has to figure out how far she's willing to go to save her son from what's making him sick. So it's creepy, to say the least. When we watched it last weekend, when it came out last Friday, we hung up a sheet on our garage and used our projector to have it outside so that a couple friends could safely and socially distance watch that with us outdoors. And at dusk, the shadows above the trees in our neighborhood, it was like a silhouette of these jaggedy tree. I don't know. It just made it super creepy. And we had a fire pit and the smoke was coming up, and you were like watching the movie. Oh my God. It made it, it heightened the experience, let's just say.
I would have ran out.
Yeah, I think my one friend was standing up kind of behind us the whole time. I think she was ready to run down the driveway if she needed to, but yeah, it was really neat to see it. It was exactly a year ago that they wrapped the film right before everything went into lockdown. I wrapped on Valentine's Day, and then they worked a few weeks after that, but they got it in just under the wire. So it was exciting to have it not just kind of fall by the wayside with the pandemic, that they were actually able to get it edited and promoted and put out. So I'm excited for everybody to see it. It stars Andi Matichak, who, if you are horror fans and you like the Halloween franchise, she is the young ingenue that is sort of taking over for Jamie Lee Curtis in the next series of Halloween movies. And, or although, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis is in them too, but she's the next generation, let's say. And along with Judy Greer. So those are great movies you should check out. And Emile Hirsch, who most people know from Into the Wild and Lords of Dogtown. But most recently, he was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He has a huge list of, his resume is really long, of a lot of neat stuff that he's done. And he had actually worked with our director, Ivan Kavanaugh, before. He did 2 other films with him, The Canal and Never Grow Old. And part of the reason that I really wanted to do this film was having watched Never Grow Old. It is gorgeous. It's a Western, which isn't usually my genre. But, I don't dislike them, but I don't actively seek them out. I'm not one of those people that loves Westerns, but if you love Westerns, and even if you don't, it's a beautifully shot, well-acted film. So I was excited to work with Ivan because I knew whatever he did was going to look really, really cool. And it did. But you asked my character. So I am Andy's character, Laura, who's the mother of the young boy. I am her close friend. We live across the street from each other, and I babysit for her son pretty much every week, multiple times a week, because she's a teacher by day and then is taking like lifelong learning classes at night. And so I watch him while she's in her classes. So we're close. And that relationship, I think, makes the plot more poignant in what happens. So I won't say anything else.
Yeah. As I said before, I have some questions,
Okay.
but we'll like specific questions, but we'll talk about that at the end so we don't spoil it for anybody.
Sure.
So if you guys haven't checked it out, it's tough now because I'm sure this movie would be like just promoted all over the theaters, but that's not right.
No, there was a pretty short list of theaters that actually were screening it, and there weren't any here in Atlanta, which I was sad about. But they hit some of the bigger cities, and it was out on demand. I've pre-ordered my DVD already, so that's available. But it was supposed to be on Shudder, but I think you have to have like a real subscription. I signed up for the 7-day trial, and it wasn't on there. I think they probably don't want people to sign up, watch something, and then drop it. So they don't give you the new releases in that. But we were able to rent it. It's available to rent from iTunes and Amazon Prime, and it's probably available on Roku. I don't have that, so I'm not sure. But all the digital outlets and other streaming on-demand services should have it available for you to rent or buy.
Yeah, I watched it on YouTube. I was able to rent the movie. So if you just search it up, Son, you can watch it here too. So
SON.
So how did you get that role?
I got a breakdown from my agent. It would have been like January, I guess, of last year. It was a pretty quick turnaround because they already had the stars lined up, and actually the boy who plays the son he lives not too far from me either, here in Atlanta, and the whole thing was shot in Mississippi. But he was most recently seen. His name's Luke David Blum, and he was in The King of Staten Island. So if you saw that movie, the young boy in that, it's the same kid. He's great. He's such a talent.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Yeah, he's really good. And so they had the stars all worked out, and they were looking for this best friend character. And my friend Nikki G came over and read with me because we taped. They were all in Mississippi, so they did self-tapes for all the auditions. And I read for it. There were 2 scenes, and they did end up being scenes that were actually in the film. Sometimes you get dummy sides, we call them, where they're not real. They just give casting a sense of whether you can show the emotion that they're looking for in that scene, but it might not be the actual scene. But in this case, it was the real deal, and sent them in. And a few days later, I had a callback with the director, and I thought that we were going to run the scene, but we ended up just having a chat and just great conversation. He was a super, super nice guy, and And then shortly after that phone call, my agent called and said, "You got the part." So it was exciting. That was my first feature film. I've done short films, student films, but I hadn't done any feature film work before, other than as background. I used to do background in feature films before I started looking at speaking roles. So
Cool.
yeah, so that was a really exciting opportunity for me. I'm very grateful for it.
And what did you think of the film when you watched it with your friends? Was that the first time you watched it?
Yeah, I had gotten a screener about a week before, but it was real, like, just web quality. It was low quality. I didn't want that to be my first viewing. So I went through, I think I took some stills from it, because I kind of had a sense for from the whole script, where my scenes were. So I didn't watch, I just like skipped forward and found what I was looking for and took my screenshots, and then that was it. But yeah, so Friday night was the first time I had watched it on the release day.
Cool. And you enjoyed it? Did you think it was a good
movie? I mean, it was creepy, and I knew the whole story, so I wasn't surprised by any of the plot points. But that didn't take away at all from my enjoyment of it. I love seeing how they edited it, and how, I'm only on set in anything that you do. You're only on set for the scenes that you're in. You're not necessarily going to be there hanging out when they shoot other stuff. So it was neat to see how some of the other scenes I had read in the script came to life. And Andy is just amazing. I thought she did a wonderful job. She's very real, and her emotions are very grounded, and for me, that's what makes a movie believable. The willing suspension of disbelief that you're required to put yourself into that world, to me, is only made better when the performances are real. So I thought everybody did a great job. But yeah, did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, the cast was great. I thought it was the directing, like the camera angles. I do like videos myself, so I see like these like shots where he like they're just like showing picture frames and clocks, and it's creepy. Yeah.
You should watch one of his other, or both of his other films that Emile Hirsch is in. I haven't seen The Canal, but you would like, as far as from a cinematography standpoint, Never Grow Old is just amazing for that. And yeah, you mentioned the casting, Sig de Miguel out of New York, and his casting associate, Stephen, why am I blanking on his last name? Sorry, Stephen. But they made a great team. They really, they were looking everywhere, not just in the Southeast. I think the doctor is from the Midwest somewhere, used to be from New York. So a lot of the actors were from New Orleans. There were people from all over. So they searched high and low for those roles, and it paid off.
Yeah, it was great. So what inspired you to become an actress and to pursue it as a career?
I, as a little kid, I think I was in first grade, and I'm an only child, so I had a record player and lots of old Disney records and various stuff my parents and my grandparents gave me, and I loved to sing and just sort of put on my own little skits and silly things myself for my family. But in first grade, we did a production of The Elephant's Child, it was called, and I was the elephant's child. I got the lead role in first grade. So, and I
was Peter Pan in my first grade production, and I'm not a famous actor.
Well, sometimes, we go different directions, and I even did for a while. I didn't stick with acting for a long time as a kid. So after that, I sang a song called The Limpopo River and loved it. And so I started taking acting classes, and both at my school, we had a really great drama department at my school once I got to like junior high and high school. But in elementary school, there's this theater in downtown Lancaster, Pennsylvania called the Fulton Opera House. And it's on the historical registry. It's one of the oldest buildings and landmarks in the area. used to be a jail before it was a theater, but
Oh my.
it's a beautiful, ornate, it's like the kind you see on TV with the boxes and the peanut gallery in the top and the velvet seats and everything. So it was a real treat when I got a role there in a production of, it's called Here's Love. It's the musical version of A Miracle on 34th Street that we all see at Christmas time. And I got the lead in that, and we did, I think it was a 2-week, maybe 3-week run around Christmas time. And that was the magic for me. That just sealed the deal. I went out on a bunch of different auditions after that. I actually auditioned for Peter Pan. Didn't get that one. I auditioned for Wendy, but they ended up casting it out of New York with an Actors Equity person, which is probably better anyway. But yeah, and just really enjoyed musical theater until I picked up a bass guitar when I was 16 and was like, I'm going to do this. So then I went and did music for many, many years. Was in several bands, and I've toured and made a bunch of records, and did that into my 20s and even into my 30s. And then in 2005, I think it was, a friend of mine was doing a short film, and she asked if I wanted to be in it. And so I did, and that was called Herringbone. And that was kind of the revisiting of being bitten by the bug all over again. I was like, oh, this is fun. And it's on camera. That was different for me. I hadn't done that before. So then I started training and doing some background roles to kind of really understand what a huge set is like and how all that works. So that was really valuable. If anyone out there is interested in acting, aside from actually taking acting classes, which everyone should be doing, if you live in a place where they do any kind of real TV or film shoots, getting on the list of the local background casting company or companies is a great way to get closer to that process and learn what all the different jobs are on set, and how to behave too. Like, you can't be taking selfies with people and posting spoilers online. So you have to be willing to actually be professional and do it. But there are a lot of people who are fans who go and do that because it's just a fun experience. But as an actor, it really gives you some great insight that you can use moving forward in your own acting roles. So since we're doing the timeline, let's see, we'll finish with that. So 2017, I booked Cobra Kai. And then after that, I didn't have an agent when I booked Cobra Kai. The casting director for season 1, Bajo Sunobi, was kind enough to post it on Actors Access. So anyone who had a free Actors Access account could see the breakdown and could self-submit to it. And so that's what I did. I had just my profile up there with a headshot. I don't even know where it came from at the time. I had some professional ones done later that year, but just had my little resume of all my training and the few theater things I had done and submitted it. And they weren't really worried about the previous roles as much as they were about your training and the quality of your audition. So submitted a tape, and the rest is history. So if you're interested in acting, Actors Access is a great place to get. It's free to put your profile together and see the jobs that are coming up and submit to them. And it does cost, I think, $2 to submit unless you do an annual subscription, which is unlimited submissions for that price. Might be $68 or $70 or something like that. But that's my best advice for aspiring actors, is to start there, and you can really get a sense for what's filming in your area and what you'd be a fit for.
It's great advice, especially for people, starting. So was Cobra Kai your first major role?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was my first, what would we call that? Like I had done 2 TV shows before that, but not of that caliber. It was my first SAG production too. So that's a big deal for actors, is doing a union project as opposed to non-union. I had done Well, in fact, when I got the breakdown for the audition for Cobra Kai, I was on location in Tennessee shooting Murder Comes to Town, which is one of those crime reenactment drama shows where I actually I had a great experience with that. With a lot of those crime reenactment shows, you don't, as an actor, you don't really get lines, or they'll make it real blurry because you're in a flashback and they're kind of trying to show that it was in the past. So it's not the greatest footage usually, but I had quite a bit of lines in that particular episode. I was a detective, and I had a great experience shooting that. So I was there, but we were in the middle of nowhere and on a farm, and I had a long period of time between my scenes that day. So thankfully I had time to memorize the 6 or 7 pages of script for Cobra Kai's audition. And at the end of the day, I was like, okay, where do I tape this? Because there were no taping services at the time in Knoxville, Tennessee. I don't know if there are now. But I had my phone. I didn't have a tripod or anything. One of my castmates held my phone for me and tried to keep it as still as possible. We're shooting against a wall in the hotel, which was really hard to find a wall that, you're supposed to have a wall like this in your audition. Yeah. No distractions. And of course, every wall in the hotel had some kind of wallpaper on it, and lighting was terrible. And I actually considered not sending my audition in because the video quality was so poor. I felt like the performance was there, but I was just like, they're going to think I am some idiot that doesn't know the rules of how to make a self-tape. And I had emailed one of my mentors, one of my instructors at Drama Inc. here in Atlanta, where I train. And I had asked him, should I send this in? But I had a whole day on set the next day, and it was due that day. And so in the morning, I hadn't heard back from him yet. And I thought, I'm just going to bite the bullet and send it. I can't really wait. And I won't have access to email when I'm out in the middle of nowhere again. And so when I got back the next day, I had an email from Jason saying, I don't know, the quality is pretty poor. Maybe you should send it, or see if you can retape it, if they would give you an extension, was what he was suggesting. But by that time it was too late because I'd already sent it. But thank goodness, because luckily Bajo overlooked the quality and still passed it on to the producers and writers. And again, the rest is history. So I feel very fortunate. There are a lot of factors that had to come into play to make that happen for me. So I feel very lucky.
Did you get cast right away, or did they call you back?
Well, so it felt like right away for me, but they had already been through, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 rounds of other actresses through agencies that had been submitted. So they had already seen a bunch of auditions. In fact, a couple different people I know had auditioned for it that would have been fabulous. They're great actors, but they hadn't quite seen what they were looking for. And so this was that last pass, and it was maybe 4 or 5 days from the actual shoot date. So it felt very fast to me, but to them, I'm sure that it was a longer culmination of searching for that right person for the role. Because I got the call, they were checking my availability, and then they had me pinned, as we say, like, just don't book anything else because we have you on hold for this. And then got the call that they have to approve, the network has to approve it. A bunch of different people have final say. Mm-hmm. So while we waited for that, I think the whole thing took about 2 or 3 days. And then it was scripts, and luckily in that case, the sides that I had received were the same scenes that were actually in the script. There were a few slight changes, but it was a quick turnaround to then memorize all of that and go and shoot it.
Yeah.
But yeah. And they did cut a lot of the cafeteria scene had a lot more to it, where I talked about this the other day with Cobra Kai Nation.
Yeah.
Brooks threw a piece of pepperoni at my face that stuck to my face and landed on my shirt, and I was all distraught about it, and it got cut. But it was such a fun, everything they write is so great, and I'm sure it's hard to cut anything out, but they have to make them fit the time slot. So those scenes were cut for time, and it was like a 6 or 7 page speech of my Counselor Blatt telling everyone how to be PC and all that. So I think they were brilliant the way they edited it down to what was needed to get the point across. But the rest of the writing that was in there was also really funny. It was great. I would love to see those deleted scenes someday.
Oh, so you filmed those scenes?
Yeah, and it was really the same scene. It was just a lot longer, and then it got edited down to what you see in the show. And I think they did a good job. It works. They didn't need all that extra stuff, but it was brilliant and turned out really funny. So it was a fun experience to do it. They had where the camera was situated to capture the pepperoni hitting my face. It made it so that Brooks Bo Mitchell couldn't actually throw it at me because he didn't have a clear line of sight to me. So they had a hydraulic gun set up that would shoot the pepperoni. Actually, I think I have a picture of it here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the special effects people built this contraption and they tested out the different different pressures. I gotta find it. And
that's all to shoot a piece of.
Yeah, that was to shoot, and then there was the pepperoni.
Oh my God.
They tried wet pepperoni and dry pepperoni, like to see what would stick, because they wanted it to hit me and stick and then fall. And they nailed it. I mean, it actually happened. So that's why I wish I could see that footage, because so much went into making that happen, and then you don't ever get to see it. But it was a lot of fun. Everybody, I mean, I'm sure all the people that you talk about reiterate that time on set on Cobra Kai is so much fun. Everyone's great to work with, and very professional, getting the job done, of course, but having a good time doing it. So it's a joy.
Yeah. And that's so cool that, like, I love how you're like showing that that photo of that contraption that they built, because it shows
I had to take a picture of it. It was too crazy.
Yeah, it's like that one little scene. It's like you would think, oh, like maybe they just threw a piece of pepperoni, but no, like there's so much that goes into like these little things that you don't see.
Oh, sure. And even like the whole day before they shot this, the special effects team had to test it because they couldn't legally shoot me in the face with it without making sure it wasn't going to hurt me. So yeah. I feel bad for whichever special effects guinea pig it was who had to stand there and let them shoot it at them first. But they had tested it, and they had, everything there ready to go for, like I said, the wet pepperoni, the dry pepperoni. They had different pressures ready to test for, how far it would go based on how far away I was standing. I mean, it's a lot of math and science stuff that's pretty cool. So I'm sure they were a little bit bummed that didn't get to happen, but
yeah.
But it's amazing. Again, the movie magic, it's one of my favorite parts besides the acting itself. Just watching everything that goes into making one of these shows happen and look as great as they do. Stunts are another aspect that I unfortunately don't get to participate in, but I'm so impressed with what Yuro Koda and Janelle Kerfman do with the stunts, and gosh, I mean, everything, just the hair and makeup. I mean, look at Hawk's hair. That's a great example. Like every single team on that show is working at 110% every day to make it what it is.
And do you see John, Josh, and Hayden, whenever you see like these other departments, do you see like at least one of them always like supervising everything? Are they always everywhere, making sure everything's going good?
It depends on the day. I've been there when all three of them have been in Video Village or behind the camera, and I've also been there on days when two of them might be off with the second team shooting something, or they're in LA and only one of them is there. But there's always at least one of the big three around. And yes, supervising, but in their very kind and relaxed way that doesn't feel like supervising to me. They're just such, they're such fans themselves, and they've created something so brilliant. They're having a great time with it. I'm sure that it's a lot of work, and there are parts that are stressful, and, there's a lot of pressure in general, just in telling this particular story, because so many people have so much invested in it, from a nostalgia standpoint, that I'm sure they feel that pressure, but you would never know talking to them about it. They're just having the best time and creating their best work. So and they create a great environment as a result of that. I think that trickles down from the top, that vibe that they give off, and the mode that they kind of set for the set, and everybody follows suit, and it's very relaxed, and a lot of fun to be there for sure.
Yeah. And what did they specifically tell you when they were like telling you about your character? How did they describe your character to you?
Yeah, so they gave me a whole backstory, which normally as an actor, when you audition, you don't get the whole script. So unless it's something existing that you know about, or you can go watch some other episodes of the show, you have to really make a lot of things up, just because whatever you're doing is going to feel more genuine if you have based it on something that you, in your mind, consider to be real. So, you might decide how long you've known the character that's in the scene with you. What do you think about them? What are you friends? Are you enemies? Whatever. But in this case, it was great because I had kind of worked some things out in my mind for the audition. One of them being that I had a crush on Daniel. And I just kind of thought it was the way it was written that made me think that. Some of the things she said sounded like an awkward flirtation kind of, like that was the only time I could think someone would say some of those things. So I went in with that, and maybe that's what got me the role, because I don't really know. I've never asked them, but it was great when I finally got on set. They were like, yeah, so she went to high school with Daniel and Allie and everyone, and had a crush on him, but is like 3 years younger, and so it was never really something that would have happened probably, but it fleshed out that whole character for me. It was really fun. They had such a clear picture, and I'm sure it wasn't just Counselor Blatt either. They seemed to have such a clear picture of how every character is plugged into the Miyagi-verse. And I love that. I think that's brilliant of them to put that much depth into even, a character that might just have one line. They have a purpose for it, and it makes it all tie together really well.
Yeah. I think your character, might be the only character that has a connection to a Karate Kid character that we don't really know about, and that's Susan.
Yeah, that's true. She might be the only one that you didn't know you were watching back in the day. Yeah, there are all these theories about whether she's in the stands at the All Valley tournament.
Yeah.
In the original. And she would have been, she would have gone to see Daniel fight. And I've actually had someone send me a picture and circle a person in it. This is probably you. But on the other hand, they made her up, so she wasn't really there. Yeah. But it's cool that there are some people in the audience that could conceivably be her. But yeah, I think it's really neat, the level of detail that they've brought to it. And of course, I hope that'll be something we can revisit at some point. I would love that. But, it has to serve the story overall. And I think it was a great introduction to the character and a reason for her to be there and to have this connection with Daniel. But, if it's not something that serves the greater story moving on, then, you establish it and you move on.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people know that, for everyone out there, Counselor Blatt is the younger sister of Susan, who was Allie's friend in the Karate Kid. So because that information was never revealed, were you the one who revealed that? Is that how it's getting around? Since it's not on the show?
Yeah, people have asked me about it in interviews. And I feel like, John HURWITZ has confirmed it on Twitter a couple times when people have asked questions about it. So he's put it out there as well, separately. There was even a time when people were asking, well, what's her first name? And there was some discussion back and forth, but I think he decided it should be Rachel.
Oh.
But some of the fans wanted Betty Blatt. But there's never been a reason to address her by her first name, so it's never come up. And she did not have a name it was just Counselor Blatt in the script.
Yeah.
people ask some really interesting questions like that. Like, I don't even know that, I think John even said we hadn't really thought about a first name for her. But he came up with one. He fixed it.
Yeah, even Daniel calls you Counselor Blatt.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess because in that scene at the dinner table, he's referring to me in front of his family, and that's how they know me. They wouldn't know me by my first name. So he says Counselor Blatt. So yeah, it makes sense. And then there's another scene where Eli, Hawk's mom, is presumably talking to me on the phone.
Yes.
And addresses, says Counselor Blatt is who she's talking to. But yeah, so there's really never been a time when her first name was needed, but maybe there will be at some point. We'll see. So
yeah. And really quickly, we have $106 raised for Lifeline Animal Project. So thank you guys so much.
Awesome.
That's great. And that's really great. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, please help donate. And yeah, thank you guys. So were you a fan of the Karate Kid movies before you got
Yeah. Oh
Kai?
yeah, I grew up in that time period. So that was all the rage, and all my friends had crushes on Daniel mostly. I think a few of my friends thought Johnny was cute. I thought he was cute, but Daniel was the guy back then. I love how they've turned the tables in Cobra Kai for sure. And then as a parent, of course, I had to have my kids watch it. So I think we've seen it a couple times. And then we watched it again at Christmas this year. They played it again on, I forget which channel, but just like a free, one of the regular networks. And we were flipping channels and saw it, so we stopped to watch it. So yeah, it's one of those movies. There are a few of them in my lifetime that I feel like no matter what I'm doing, if I'm changing the channel and that movie's on, I'm going to watch it. And that's definitely one of them.
Have you watched all the Karate Kid movies?
No, I have only seen number one a bunch of times. And I feel like I've seen Karate Kid 2 at least once, but that would have been a long time ago, probably when it came out. But I have not seen any of the newer ones, like the one with Hilary Swank. I think I was just older at the time. I wasn't in that target audience when those came out and was doing other things and just never really got around to catching up. And I need to do that because I think it's all part of the Miyagi-verse. It's all tied in. So I don't know. People seem to have different schools of thought on some of the sequels. So
yeah,
I don't know. Do you like the whole series, or do you favor 1 and 2? That's what I hear most people say.
Yeah. So me personally, because I didn't grow up watching them and I watched Cobra Kai first, like when I see the Karate Kid movies, I kind of think like, how could this tie into Cobra Kai? So I love all of them, including Karate Kid 3, because you got Terry Silver, Mike Barnes, who could come back in Cobra Kai. So
yeah, I missed that
one.
I need to go watch that one because I think I would really like that, and I just have never sought it out. So shame on me. I need to do that.
Maybe there is you'll probably catch up on a lot of Easter eggs when you go back and watch Cobra Kai.
Yes,
There's definitely a lot.
I bet. Yeah. I think that's so great too that they do all that for the fans and probably for themselves too because they enjoy it. But that's a neat aspect to it.
Yeah, and you were in one of the biggest Easter eggs, which was the Halloween dance from episode 3. What was that like? That whole atmosphere?
Oh, it was so much fun. It was like 150 extras, background people, all in costume. I'm not sure if they asked them. I think they were asked to bring their own costume, and then if the wardrobe people didn't like what they had, they'd give them something else. But for the most part, they brought their own, and they looked great. And everybody, I'll say the same thing too about the auditorium scene in season 3 that I'm in. Those background actors were great. Sometimes you get a room full of people and it's just kind of people are going through the motions. But in both the Halloween dance scene and that auditorium scene, everyone got really into it and was truly, doing their best to live in that world for the moment, and it felt really real. I thought they both turned out really well. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. I think some of my own I guess you call it nervousness. I don't know, like the anticipation, I think is a better word, of working with Ralph Macchio helped to fuel my awkward flirtation a little bit, probably. But he was great to work with. And I learned so much watching him work. That was a real treat as well.
Yeah. So that's funny that you had a crush on him when you were watching the Karate Kid movies, and now all these years later you're working with him. Yeah. Can you like talk specifically about like what your and Ralph's relationship was like on set?
Oh yeah, I mean, he's just the consummate professional, you know, introduced himself and like he's just a regular guy, like introducing himself as though I don't already know who he is, that kind of thing, you know. Very friendly, but got right down to business because as with TV sets, you know, TV shows, everything moves at a pretty quick pace and you've got to stay on schedule. So, but it was never, you know, it didn't feel rushed or anything. He was very genuine. But one of the moments that I talk about a lot in that scene in particular was when he's looking past me over at Sam because they're texting each other. And in the way the camera is set up to capture his coverage, he can't see her. And her stand-in may have been over there, but she certainly wasn't standing there in that moment. And yet he has to connect as though that person is standing there. And since the camera's in the way, he worked with the camera operator to figure out where to put a little piece of tape around the frame of the lens that gave the perfect eye line that then when they cut to the footage of Sam, you felt there wasn't any weirdness in where he was looking based on where her eyes were in the scene. I mean, he was meticulous about that. Checking with them on what the framing was and where his eye line was and which lens they were using. And he knows so much about all of that technical stuff. And so it was really fun to watch him sort that out and perfect it. You know, he cares so much about how it's going to look and giving the editors what they need to put it together successfully. So he's, in addition to thinking about what we're all thinking, you know, our lines and getting them right and hitting your mark and all that, he's thinking about all these other sort of directorial things that really make the program, you know, take it to another level. So
yeah,
fun.
And I know he's credited as an executive producer, so that's like hearing that. That's the first time I've ever heard him really like be involved in the behind the scenes. So I find that really cool.
Yeah, and I gather that, you know, he's probably doing that in every scene that he's in. I was only witness to the ones that I worked with him in. And you do a little bit of a read through / blocking rehearsal before you shoot, but it's not like, for those who do theater or something, it's not a dress rehearsal. It's not a full on, you're basically just kind of like, okay, and then I say this and we're going to move here. It's very glossed over. But he in the, in season 3 in the auditorium scene, he had some thoughts on some of the blocking, and you know, he works very closely with the big 3 or whoever is there for getting all that stuff perfect. And it's a collaborative. They're a great team. They work really well together, and I mean, obviously, I think that's part of why the show is the success that it is. But yeah, everybody at every level really cares about what they're putting out there, so it shows.
Yeah. Did you get to, because in season 3, the scene you had with him, you weren't really interacting with him specifically, but like, did you guys get to interact like after you were
We had lunch? Yeah.
Nice.
He and Courtney and Jose, who's the principal, and I think Maya, who plays the parent that stands up and talks with me about the kids, about the hugs not hits part, and then and also Rick Perez, the other parent in that scene. We all were at a table together at lunch that day. So yeah, and they're just, you know, we looked at pictures of Courtney Hengler's new baby. It wasn't actually that new at the time. Like, we all remembered her being pregnant from before, but hadn't seen the photos, so she was showing us the pictures. But yeah, it's like a big family. And I've heard too that a lot of bigger sets aren't always as welcoming to the folks like me who are a day player, come in for a week, or, you know, whatever the interspersed days are that we have throughout their calendar to do our work. We're not there every day. And I don't know, I just feel like everyone at Cobra Kai is so welcoming, and it's like you never left, you know, it's picking up where you left off, and just normal conversations among humans. It's, you know, they're very, very down to earth and very kind.
Yeah. So Courtney had her baby before the filming of season 3?
Yes. Yes. And I want to say that she was definitely several, like maybe even 6 months old. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't remember her birth date, but she was not brand new or anything when we were shooting, but she was still little.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
I
a challenge.
yeah, the timing too, because you have like, it's like a year in between seasons. They would have had to totally write Daniel with another kid if, you know?
Well, there are a couple scenes in season 2 that if you look really closely, you can see they're trying to cover her baby bump.
Oh,
So they were pretty good about. I don't think if you didn't know that she was pregnant, I don't think you would know.
yeah.
And she posted some pictures on Instagram at the time too about working with Frank Helmer, our costume designer, about how different outfits were going to hide her bump. And as the season went on, it was getting harder and harder. She had a cute little series of pictures that she posted that year. They did a good job.
Yeah, I had no idea. So they did do good with that.
Yeah.
So, when you were in high school, did you have any moments with your guidance counselor? Like any memorable
You
moments?
know, I hate to say it, but our guidance counseling department was a joke at my school. I had my really good friend who sadly has since passed away. She was valedictorian of our class, smartest person I think I've still probably ever known to this day. And she took the test that they gave us, that the counseling office gave us to like figure out your aptitude. And, you know, back then in the old days, it was on paper and you just filled out the bubbles. And I think it said that she should be like a sanitation worker or something. Not that there is anything wrong with that career path, but it was clearly not what this girl was suited for. Like she needed to be using her intellect to like cure cancer or something. Like she's that level, and needed to be going on a 4-year degree path with her intelligence, whatever. It wasn't, I don't know, I'm sort of digging a hole here, but it wasn't the right link to her aptitude. And the counseling office was just like, oh, well, and they never really, I remember her saying they never really helped her to figure out, well, what should she do with this? Should she go into research? Should she be a doctor? Should she work in public health, or should, you know, go into the army and do so? There were so many options for her, and they never really. So after that happened, I really didn't spend any time seeking out their help with anything. But I mean, I guess in some ways that helps to inform my role as being the sort of inept. I have Counselor Blatt has good intentions, but she's pretty ineffective. So I guess that's a truth that comes from my own background. Now I went to the University of Alabama, and at our graduation from high school, in the program, it listed all the schools that each of the seniors had been accepted to, or, you know, was committed to going to, and they did not include Alabama on the list. It was a private school, and I think they thought that wasn't up to their caliber, or it was a typo. Could be either way, but I sort of remember thinking at the time, like, okay, this is par for the course with the guidance stuff. Like if you weren't going to an Ivy League school, they weren't really excited about whatever you were looking to do. So yes, that was my experience, and I do think that informs my character for sure, in not really being all that useful. How
Yeah.
about you? Do you have to do, I think the counselors at my kids' school are much more hands-on and much more helpful and useful, and they have all kinds of good information these days.
Yeah. Well, to be quite frank, I don't even know the guidance counselor at my
Really?
school. So, I mean, I don't think I've had any experience like that, but I mean, I know like teachers, sometimes um don't really like they're just so focused on one thing and then don't really look like at the big picture. And I know there's some
Yeah.
comparisons like to that like with Counselor Blatt, which I never really like. It's funny. It was really like the like other people like seeing my comments and stuff that I always thought like Counselor Blatt was just a funny character and I just really enjoyed her character. I never really like thought of connecting it to like the school system like in the real world. Like is there
Yeah.
like a problem or something with some teachers? So what
Yeah, and they make the connection in season 3 to Dare, which was a big program in the 80s and I think 90s that I believe it's still around today, but I think they're doing a totally different program from what they did back then, which everyone said didn't work. And so that's the sort of comparison that they made in between Hugs Not Hits and Dare. But I think that in the end, what they're trying to say is that Hugs Not Hits isn't going to work either. You know, none of these initiatives, at least back then, I'm not sure about now, seem to really have an effect because kids are hard. I mean, I have a background and a degree in advertising and communication, and it's a hard market to because anything we think that y'all think is cool is probably not cool. You know, I mean, my kids pointed out in almost every show we watch that no kid would ever say that to another kid. Like we would never say that. Or the stuff that they get excited about in something like High School Musical seems very unrealistic because it's all these disconnected adults writing the script for these kids to perform, and the kids do their best with it, but it's not really anything they would actually genuinely say or do. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's a disconnect there, probably because of the age of the writers. But with Cobra Kai, I feel like the writing team is much more tuned in to that age group, and I don't know how. I don't know what magic that is that makes it more genuine somehow, but it seems to work. I mean, there's stuff that's going to be a little bit far-fetched in some of the, some of the fight scenes and stuff that in real life you might not get away with doing some of those things, for example. But they make it seem real and believable in the moment, and that's what makes it good TV.
Yeah. And my like favorite scenes from the show like come from the school because it is so realistic. I mean, it sucks and it's like I hate to say this because like when I watch Karate Kid and see them in the cafeteria and then everyone's talking, no one's on their phones, but nowadays if a guidance counselor is giving a speech, like I've seen this at my school, kids are just texting and that's
Yeah,
what you
nobody's
saw.
listening. Yeah.
So it's like it's sad, but it's also realistic. And I think
Mhm.
that's what makes the show, while there are parts that are very over the top, like those parts are very grounded. And that's
Yeah.
what I connect to.
Well, and I think they help to set up these characters too, like Sholo's character, Miguel, in season 1. He's the only one who's listening to me. And
Yeah.
everyone else
I
is on
love
their
that.
phones and stuff. And he's like drinking his little juice box and hanging on every word.
Yeah.
And it's just funny. That helps to sort of show his transition from that kid to who he is in later seasons. So they do a great job of using those little moments to frame even bigger moments later. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like feel like I would connect with Miguel. He's sitting right in the front of the lunchroom. Like that would be someone like me who's just like listening. Everyone else is just doing their
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, I would too. I think even as a kid, I would have because I was taught to be respectful. And we didn't have cell phones back then. So I don't know. I can't speak to how that would have looked in my generation. But we also just, you didn't get away with stuff like that where I went to school. If you weren't listening, some other teacher was hanging around, you know, on the side watching, and they would come and, you know, make you leave or take away whatever you were messing with. I don't know. It probably depends on the school too, what the vibe is. And I think they've done a great job of kind of setting the vibe for West Valley High, which is all these teachers that want to have authority and have these rules and initiatives that they want the kids to follow, but it's ineffective because ultimately they really don't have control. So it's brilliant. They've created that understanding in all of our minds without really having to say it.
Yeah. And I like I'm a fan of the arc that Counselor Blatt had from seasons 1 to 3. I mean, I liked her in season 1 because she was very kind and chill with the students, but then I feel like after that whole school fight,
Yep.
her guard is very alert and she's like very like a little too tough, but it was an interesting arc. What do you
Yeah,
think
I
of
love
that?
that you noticed that, and I loved it too. I thought that that was a great opportunity to kind of show, all right, if she and the principal and the other adults in charge in season 1 are just going to sort of gloss over the stuff and that's not effective, then yeah, when this big fight happens at the end of season 2, and the only teacher who's anywhere in sight, Dustin Lewis's character, Mr. Oh gosh, Palmer,
Mr. Palmer, yeah.
is like, this is above my pay grade, then something has to change. So I think they did a really good job of, you know, Counselor Blatt and Principal Lopez are both kind of nervous at this point. They've got all the parents up in arms, and we don't really have an excuse for what happened and why we didn't intervene and how we could have let that happen. And so it's like, okay, focus on moving forward and trying to appease people and make them feel like we're trying. So who knows? I don't, you know. And then, you know, the season 3 fight happens off campus. So, you know, you can't control. Teachers have a hard job. I will admit that. But I'll be very curious to see where they take that in season 4. You know, because they have done such a great job of creating that wave of differing, as you said, it's an arc from differing approaches to discipline and karate in general. So we'll see where it goes.
And do you know, like, I remember, because I mean, I've heard there's been some fights at my school, or not at my school, but like not on school property, but then you know, the school hears about it and then people like get expelled. Do you know, like just in real life, like if that like were the case, like do you think like the school, like if like a fight like that were to happen at the LaRusso house, if the school would get involved or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what the protocol is for that in real life. And again, with their writing, they can take some creative liberties with that and just sort of decide what West Valley's policy would be on that. But I have no idea. We've had a lot of that here in the school district where I live, with stuff happening off campus and the kids being disciplined. So I guess in this day and age, it does feel like the parents are going to ensure that some justice is done if the schools don't. So it's tricky, but I don't know any of the legalities of any of that, or if the school is required to respond. So I guess they probably do some research on that and see, you know, in real life, what would have to happen from a legal standpoint. And then they let their writers just decide how West Valley will handle it.
Yeah. Also, I completely lost track of time. We're already at an hour and I don't want to take too much of your time.
Oh, thank you. And my battery's low, so that's good timing.
Okay. Let me see. Can I ask you, I think I want to see. I have a bunch of questions. I want to see if maybe can I ask you one more question?
Yeah, sure.
Let me see.
Yeah, I saw that you had several questions in the YouTube thing from yesterday. A lot of them were
Yeah.
asking about season 4, and of course, I can't say anything about that. So sorry, guys. You'll
Yeah.
have to wait and see.
Well, with season 2, because Counselor Blatt wasn't in season 2, how did you find out that, even though like you knew like it was going to take place in the summer, did the writers tell you you're not going to be in season 2, you'll come back for season 3? Or
No, you don't find out that far in advance at my level. I'm sure that all of the series regulars are informed of all the plans, but the rest of us just stand by patiently and hope, because of course it's wonderful when you do get to be a part of it and get to be on set. But I'm also just a huge fan of the story, so I'm excited one way or the other. Even season 2, when I wasn't in it, I still loved it. I'm not in it for me. I'm a fan of the whole franchise. So obviously, I would love to be able to be a part of it as the story moves forward. But we'll just have to wait and see.
yeah. And last one, if Counselor Blatt were to join a dojo, I have a feeling what you would say, but would she join Cobra Kai, Miyagi-Do, or Eagle Fang?
Yeah, I think that Miyagi-Do would be the obvious choice given her connection to Daniel, but I'm waiting to see what happens with Eagle Fang. I think that could be a pretty cool choice as well. So, well, let's see what she would say after next season.
Yeah, I think Amanda, there might be a little rivalry with Amanda and Counselor Blatt, if you
Yeah.
know. So that'd be funny. But Erin, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. It was a great discussion.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been so much fun. And, ever since, what did we figure out? It was like almost a year ago that you won the trivia contest on the Cobra Kai companion page the day that
Yes.
I was hosting. So it's great to get to talk to you again, and this time in person-ish, see your face. So thank you so much for having me. And thanks everybody for your questions and for your donations. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we're at $156, which is
Oh my gosh,
that's a great
that's
mark.
amazing.
So, and
Thank you.
it's going to stay up. The donation will stay up even after the interview is over, so people can
Great.
donate, and all of it's going to go right there. YouTube sends it right there. And yeah, thank you all for joining, for commenting, and thank you, Erin. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Bye, Drew.
Cobra Kai never dies.